And here we go with a full review of the ASICS Sonicblast, one of the latest and greatest in the Blast series from ASICS. Okay, let's remember, we have the Dynablast, we have the Versablast, we have the Novablast, we have the Sonicblast, we have the Superblast, and we have the Megablast, okay? So this, according to ASICS, is designed to live somewhere between the Novablast, sits a little bit higher than that, and then a little bit underneath the Superblast. Supposed to be like a little bit more of a peppier Novablast and a little bit more of a well-rounded Superblast. So I'm not sure if this meets any of those criteria based on my experiences in the shoe, and we'll get into it here. Welcome aboard. My name is Jason. I'm a nurse practitioner in podiatry, and I love talking about shoes. Okay, we're out here in a windy setting, so if it's a little bit windy, I do apologize. But let's jump right into it, guys. So I really did enjoy my time in the Sonicblast. It does quite a bit, but I'm not sure if it's relegated into a certain area of the Blast series. Okay, it definitely has its place. Okay, all right. So line by line, like I like to do, let's just talk about this thing one piece at a time. So looking at the laces here, we do have some nice sporty laces that are very comfortable. They're very padded, and they do lay down nicely across the top of the foot. Okay, really did enjoy the laces. Here they didn't seem to have much lace bite. They didn't deform all that much, and they did hold up to the runner's loop very, very nicely. Now, mentioning the eyelet chain, there is quite a bit of eyelets here. I prefer, as I go along here, I'm figuring out that I do like, a little bit higher number, like in the 5, 6, 7. Range of number of eyelets available, and that to me gives just an opportunity for it to really cinch down. That said, sometimes the material, if it's too much here, it can kind of squeeze in and can kind of pinch and make contact. But that was not the case with the Sonicblast here. So very good as far as the eyelet chain spacing, the numbers of grommets available, the very minimal reinforcement here. It does have some attitude. It does have a little bit of extra reinforcement along the edge here, as well as for the individual holes here as well. Okay, and like I mentioned, there is an availability for the runner's loop here. We can get into the fit here in a little bit. Okie dokie. And now sometimes the lace length is actually an issue here, and that is not an issue here. I didn't have too much lace or too little lace. It was just the Goldilocks right in the middle. So excellent job there in this nice lemony colorway. So thinking about the tongue and the thickness and everything, actually this is a little bit thinner than I would expect for something that's considered a trainer, something that can be used for a little bit more than just a specific use, like a specific tempo use. It does tempo. It's supposed to be for daily. It's supposed to be for all kinds of jobs. But there's not really much as far as padding or comfort, in that regard for the tongue here. That said, again, with the material, with the lacing, with the spacing, I didn't have any scrunching or bunching of the tongue here. I also didn't have any migration of the tongue. It actually sat quite nicely on the top of the foot here. So very happy with how the tongue worked out with this particular shoe. Okay, again, no migration here. Didn't really have too much of an issue there. Thinking about the the gussets here, laterally and medially. Okay, there is like a 1-inch band of material here towards the lateral and medial aspect. And let's see, is one beefier than the other? No, I think that they're relatively the same. Well, if anything, the lateral gusset does have a little bit more in terms of width. So that's something that I'm noticing there. But either way, it did fit very nicely across the top of the foot. So pretty happy with that. Alrighty, and so getting the hands into the material here, I really, really did appreciate this upper. Okay, it's a very thin, I think it's a single layer mesh here. It's quite breathable. It's not the most, it's not the thinnest upper out there these days, but it's still by any means considered thin by definition. Okay, and then other than that, the toe box is something else that can be mentioned here for the Sonicblast, is its ability to maintain its shape, even though it does have minimal infrastructure, if you will. Okay, that exoskeleton is there. It's not super duper obvious. It's not very well, super built up or any of that, but it is there, and it is kind of keeping away from those toes. Okay, that said, I did have a tiny little hot spot that did occur to the right foot underneath the ball of the foot, but that was temporary. It happened one time and then it eventually went away. So it was not something that persisted. It was not something that increased, but it was something that I noticed, and then, like I said, it went away. And thinking about the Mega Blast that we reviewed recently, we did have some kind of pinching in that fifth toe here, and that was not the case here. There is a up and away-ness of the lateral I guess flange, if you will, of the toe box on this side here. So didn't have any issues at all with the fit here. I went true to size, men's size 11 for me, and that's what this is here. So the fit of the shoe actually did really well. So moving on, thinking about the rest of the shoe here, you do notice that there is a little bit more flappy material here towards the medial side, and I did see it kind of pushing out with each step. That was something that I saw, that I noticed, but that I did not feel any kind of movement as I was running there. So I didn't have any issues with a looseness of the material. Okay, moving on towards the back third of the shoe, kind of this, the heel counter, etc. Okay, so getting my hands into kind of the padding here. Minimal padding, kind of going along here, right here, right here, right here. So it's comfortable, but it's not excessive. It's not super duper plush, but again, it's not so minimal. It's not, race day specific. So, again, just the right amount in terms of cushion there. Okay. The heel, there you go. Can see the material here of the heel. Did not have a single bit of heel slippage with this shoe. So very happy, considering the midsole and how it's not the loosest midsole, it's not the flimsiest midsole, that it was able to still allow that heel to stay put and not have a single bit of heel slippage. So actually the fit of this shoe, the lockdown of the shoe, is probably one of my favorites in recent memory as far as how it fit. Now, getting the shoe on is a different matter. Okay, getting it on, it is quite tight actually, and there's no, it's funny because I never really need that little loop there or any other assistive technologies to get my shoe on, but I did find that getting this one on was a little bit on the tighter side. So once it was on, it actually locked in very nicely, and that's not even a negative. That's just more of an anecdotal, man, that's just interesting, that I never really think about the loop in the back, but the one time that I'm looking for it, but it's not there, but whatever. We'll probably save 5 grams. So anyways, the fit of the shoe was fantastic. The lockdown of the shoe was really, really good. Really happy with the lockdown and the fit here of the Sonicblast. All right. So moving into more of the shoe here, we got the insert here. It's removable. Insert, sock liner. I throw those terms around interchangeably, but I think the official term is sock liner, as this is the liner that touches your sock, and an insert is something more that you would consider for orthopedic or corrective purposes, more like the over-the-counter or especially custom orthotics. But that's beyond the scope of this video here. But either way, here it is from the Sonicblast. And actually, I really, really did enjoy the step-in comfort of this. Noticeably here with the insert is of high quality. It's got a nice arch here. It kind of sticks up there. That said, I would not consider the Sonicblast to be the most in terms of arch support. It's not something that was immediately obvious to me. I mean, there's the material here, but it's not something that was so flat that it was not at all uncomfortable. It was just not something that I noticed, thinking, oh wow, this is got so much arch support. Not the case. But that said, it's not unsupportive either. So somewhere in between, okay, and it was okay. But yeah, the foam here of this sock liner felt really good. It felt quite bouncy. I see that companies are trying to market their products to say that their inserts and sock liners have an ability to offer some rebound, some energy. I'm not so sure. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not, but that's not where I think the energy return comes from. But you know, again, I digress. So anywho, very good in terms of the build quality there. Okay, finally moving into the midsole of the shoe here, we have three things. We have the FF Turbo Squared. We have this P-Bax type Astro plate, which is like a pretty, it's not pretty flexible. It's semi-flexible. It's got some flex to it. It's not super duper rigid. And then on the bottom, we've got FF Blast Max. So your FF Turbo Squared, that was a big hit with the Mega Blast, since that's like completely that foam there, that Turbo Squared. Very, very bouncy, very, very energetic. Just an incredible foam. Still incredible. You know, wow, ASICS, that Turbo Squared is just phenomenal. And then this this plate here, you know, as far as it staying rigid and maintaining the rocker outsole and the longitudinal stiffness of the shoe, you know, I felt like it was not quite as stiff as some of the other plastic plated shoes out there. That said, it being kind of on the semi-flexible side actually worked to its advantage, you know, in certain foot strikes, especially the midfoot and especially the rear foot. But I tend to stay kind of in that midfoot range, and then, you know, maybe even a little bit posterior to that. That is where I felt like the sweet spot of the shoe is. There on your screen is the stack height. It's an 8 mil drop. And I felt like, again, like once the sweet spot was found and engaged in this shoe, it really sung and spoke to me for sure. Okay. Going up hills, I did feel like basically like a little boost, a little assist, you know, that I haven't felt in other plastic plated shoes in the past, which I thought was interesting. And then, you know, this FF Blast Max on the bottom is like kind of their squishy, plushier foam. You found that in the Novablast 5, yeah, the Novablast 5, which I felt like that foam was just so squishy there. But here it is, and you can feel kind of that cushion, that plushness, that comfort. But it's an interesting combination, you know, based on what you're doing and how much force you're putting into the shoe determines how much energy you're going to get out of this thing. So it does have a range, a spectrum, if you will, of attitudes from very mild, you know, very, very daily in its feel, all the way up to, if you do, you know, push the gas a little bit, it does kind of wake up and it does respond to whatever it is you're doing. And it seems like the more you put into it, the more it wants to give back in terms of that energy return, which became obvious, especially you know, hanging out in the zone 2, zone 3 for me, you know, kind of pushing it a little bit. You know, it responded well, especially during certain sections, you know, flat, especially downhill. This is a very nice downhill shoe. It woke up and, you know, again, with it, you know, feeling quite stable, you know, in terms of the upper, as far as the geometry of the shoe, it was really a smooth mover, okay? It was a smooth mover for sure. That said, there was a little bit of separate quality to the front and the back of the shoe in certain foot strikes. More towards the back, you can definitely feel where the back of the shoe was one thing and then the front of the shoe was another. Very much a very horse and buggy setup in terms of like you felt the back of the shoe kind of twisting one way and then the torsional forefoot, you know, kind of going the opposite direction. But that was working pretty well for the shoe. Like, you know, I felt good, I felt fast, I felt pretty speedy during some of those workouts where I was like doing that. And I thought that was a pretty neat thing. Okay, now as far as like, you know, what was it like so obvious, you know, to have this like real plush foam on the bottom? Maybe because, you know, I just finished with the Mega Blast, which is all turbo squared, and then you bring this thing in, which has, you know, the plate plus the other foam on the bottom here. You know, definitely a different experience. It definitely was not the Mega Blast experience. Definitely a little bit more muted. Okay, but you kind of had to reach for some of those faster paces, a little bit more engagement of the shoe, a little bit more cueing and being assertive with it. To kind of get that out of the turbo squared. It wasn't just like freely given. You had to kind of go trick-or-treating for it, if you will. But that said, you know, it's an interesting shoe. And it does kind of stand alone in its purpose for for what it's doing and everything. Now, I see that there's a plate. I don't know if ASICS is going to make an offering that's just turbo squared and just the FF Blast Max sans plate. Maybe they started out that way and then decided to add the plate later on. I don't know. But this is what we got here. So, you know, if there's going to be any future endeavors in that way, I guess we'll be here for it, because it seems like whatever ASICS puts out, you know, we're gonna check it out, and it's usually gonna be pretty good. So as far as the ride of the shoe, it was very, very balanced, very nice. You know, I definitely felt, you know, that medial column, that first big toe all the way back, being very supportive in the shoe, pretty much through all the different paces and all the different ways that I was striking my foot. The ground reactive force was very much obvious here, and I did feel quite supported on the lateral aspect as well here. You know, now whether that was mind over matter, placebo effect, or that I can see that there's the plate there, I didn't feel that I was tipping off the side. I didn't feel that there was too much rotation going on. So again, I felt very, very much balanced in the shoe. Very much held, so happy about the ride. It was very, very, very smooth. I know I talked about that separateness earlier, but it worked. It just worked. Yeah, so pretty happy with that. This is a ATPU foam. This turbo squared, and this FF Blast Max is an olefin. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, please let me know. Olefin based foam, and I'm trying to remember the other. I'll put it on the screen now. The other brand, the other shoe that has that same foam. I am escaping that here. Okay, so get the bug out of my eye. Here we go. Moving on with the outsole of the Sonicblast here, just the right amount, and you can kind of see how the lateral bit of the shoe, this outside, has a little bit more in terms of rubber here. Sticky, sticky, sticky ASICS grip. I believe that, yeah, this is ASICS grip here. And then as far as like the outside of the shoe, along the posterior here, you got a little bit more rubber than you do towards the medial side. You know, now, did I feel like the external geometry contributing to the ride? Not really. I didn't feel like, you know, a significant amount of stuff was going on towards the outside to make the shoe feel any different. That said, you know, it's a great rubber. Felt very much glued to the earth. Hit you know, several different wet patches and slippery areas, and had no problems with the traction whatsoever. Okay, so there's the price of the shoe on your screen. It's not a very cheap shoe at all. And so, you know, they're marketing this thing to be, you know, a little bit more than the Novablast, a little bit less than the Superblast. I hate using those words, but just as far as like where it lines up in terms of the line, this shoe could definitely stand alone by itself. It doesn't need friends. It could, like, you know, be a lone shoe that you can just do. I feel like, you know, this definitely could serve a lot of purposes, do a lot of things. It can be very comfortable. That toe box especially is to be mentioned in terms of it being like a standalone shoe, or at least one of two of a rotation that you're doing, whatever the second one would be. I don't know. Maybe a race day, or maybe something a little bit more long distance based, specific, you know, to go along with this. You know, but as far as like, do you need this in the Novablast or in the Blast series? I don't think so. I mean, if you enjoyed the Novablast, for me, I thought it was a little on the squishy side. But if you've got that, if you've got the Superblast, do you absolutely need the Sonicblast to make your life complete? I don't think so. I don't think you necessarily need to have this as far as, like, you know, proof that you know, we're into the Blastness, into the series. It's a fun shoe. Again, it's an all-around fun shoe. You know, I don't want to attach it to the Novablast. I don't want to attach it to the Superblast. You know, I think this shoe can definitely stand, pun intended, on its own. But that said, you know, yeah, I guess if you're thinking about it as compared to the Novablast, it's a lot more peppier. Yeah, and compared to the Superblast, you know, it doesn't feel like this big unit. It's a lot more flexible than the Superblast. You know, maybe we can do like a side-by-side like comparison of the Novablast and this. You know, I do want to do like a kind of across the Blast line to see what's up with all the different Blast shoes. But yeah, that's just my opinion. I don't think that you absolutely need to have it. But you know, if this is your introduction to the Blast series, welcome. You know, because it's got a little bit of everything. It's got a little bit of everything, and it's got something new. So, you know, I don't think you'll be disappointed here in this one. Okay, all right. So let's see, what else? I think that's all we got. That's all we got. Okay, again, my name is Jason. I'm a nurse practitioner. I work in podiatry. I do foot care, talk about shoes, you know, and all kinds of cool clinical stuff there. Big fan. This is like kind of my little creative outlet, able to get outside with the dump trucks in the back. Sorry about that noise. And hang out with you guys and hang out, talk about shoes. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. I really enjoyed my time here. This was a fun shoe. Blisters, breakdown, any of that stuff, nothing. So it was just a really cool, fun shoe. Okay, that's all I got. Feel free to like and subscribe. Follow for more. Thank you guys. Link for this will be down in the description. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.